Savannah Guthrie's mother, Nancy Guthrie, missing day 26.
Nancy Guthrie was 84 years old. She lived alone in the Catalina foothills of Tucson, a quiet pocket of the desert where the nights are still, the neighbors wave from their driveways, and nothing extraordinary ever happens. Until one winter night, when Nancy Guthrie simply disappeared. No screams, no signs of a struggle, no shattered glass, no forced locks, no neighbor jolted awake by something wrong in the dark. Just silence, and then gone. What investigators found wasn't a crime scene full of chaos. It was something far more unsettling. It was precision. It was calm. It was someone who knew exactly what they were doing. And at the center of this mystery, caught on grainy surveillance footage, masked, deliberate, unhurried, is a figure the world is now desperately trying to identify. Today, we're going deep, because two names keep surfacing, two men, two sets of questions that nobody has been able to fully answer yet. Tommaso Cioni, Dominic Evans. This is the story of what we know, what the evidence suggests, and what may ultimately crack this case wide open. Chapter 1. The Night Everything Changed. Let's set the scene. The Catalina foothills, a desert neighborhood where residents describe the nights as predictable, almost meditative. Porch lights flicker on at dusk, coyotes howl somewhere in the distance, and by 10 p.m., the streets are empty. This is the kind of neighborhood where nothing bad is supposed to happen. But someone wasn't counting on that comfort. Someone was using it. Investigators believe the suspect approached under cover of darkness. They disabled the camera. They moved through the property, past the security gate, to the front entrance, and removed an 84-year-old woman from her home without making a sound that anyone could hear. Think about that for a moment. The sheer control required to do that. No panic, no improvisation, no alarm triggered, no dog barking, no light flipped on down the street. Whoever this was, they had done their homework. The FBI released surveillance footage that shows a masked figure approaching the front entrance. Height between 5'9" and 5'10", average build, facial hair visible beneath the mask, a hosteler on the body, what appears to be a holster on the body. The internet has been analyzing this footage frame by frame, scrutinizing posture, wrist markings, the way the figure moves. And while the footage alone can't tell us who this person is, it tells us what kind of person this is. Composed, prepared, familiar with the environment. That last word is the one that matters most. Here's where this case gets complicated and compelling. There was no forced entry. In Tucson, many desert homes have layered security, gates, heavy front doors, reinforced locks. And yet, the suspect on that footage, they don't struggle, they don't fumble, they don't hesitate at a locked gate. Either that gate was unsecured or the suspect knew it would be open. That is not a small distinction. That is potentially the most important detail in this entire case. Crimes of opportunity are messy. They involve noise, improvisation, mistakes. What happened to Nancy Guthrie was the opposite. The path was cleared. The route was known. The timing was deliberate. And then there's the glove. Roughly 2 miles from the home, along a possible escape route, investigators recovered a single glove. It visually matches what the suspect is wearing in the footage. DNA extracted from that glove belongs to an unidentified male. But here's where the story splits in a way that changes everything. Separate biological evidence recovered inside the residence produced a second DNA profile. 2 profiles, 2 different individuals, 2 separate contributors to this crime scene. Authorities confirmed the 2 profiles do not match each other. What does that mean? It means investigators are no longer necessarily looking for one person. They may be looking for a team. Chapter 3. the planner and the executor. In criminal investigations, there's a framework that comes up again and again in targeted abductions, and it's worth understanding here. The planner and the executor. The planner doesn't have to be at the scene. They never have to touch a door handle or step under a camera. Their role is intelligence, schedules, layouts, vulnerabilities, who leaves lights on, when the gate is unlocked, what route out of the neighborhood has the least traffic at 2 a.m. The executor carries out the act, physically, in person, under pressure. This model explains how a crime can appear both expertly calculated and efficiently executed. It explains how someone deeply familiar with a household could leave almost no trace because they were never there. And it explains 2 DNA profiles at a single crime scene. Now, let's talk about Tommaso Cioni. Tommaso entered the Guthrie family nearly 2 decades ago through marriage. For years, he was present at family gatherings. He knew the rhythms of the household, the schedules, the routines, the small daily patterns that only someone close would ever notice. Long-term relationships create a specific kind of access, not forced, not suspicious, just quiet familiarity. And in targeted crimes, that familiarity is often the key that unlocks everything. Then there's Dominic Evans. Evans is a longtime associate of Cioni's and a resident of the greater Tucson area. Public records show prior felony convictions, burglary and robbery. Those aren't abstract charges. Burglary means unlawful entry into a structure with intent. Robbery means willingness to confront, to exert force, to push through the discomfort that stops most people cold. Past behavior is not proof of present guilt, but it does tell us something about behavioral capacity, about what a person has already demonstrated they are willing to do. And the act committed against Nancy Guthrie required a very specific psychological profile. Someone who could enter a home in the dark, approach an elderly woman, and remove her, calmly, quietly, without losing control of the situation. That is not an easy thing to do. It requires something deeply unsettling, composure under pressure. Chapter 4. Geography, Silence, and Digital Shadows. Geography matters in this investigation more than most people realize. The Catalina foothills, Marana, the greater Tucson suburbs, these areas form a tight triangle, connected by direct routes that can be traveled at night with minimal traffic. For someone needing to approach quietly and disappear quickly, local knowledge isn't just helpful, it's essential. And to the south, rural communities along Interstate 19, sparse population, long stretches of open desert highway, isolated properties with no surveillance. Law enforcement has stated there's no evidence Nancy was transported across the border, but every plausible route must be examined, and in the desert, distance is easy to cover when no one is watching. Now let's talk about something that's drawn a lot of public attention: silence. In cases like this, people connected to the victim often step forward. They make appeals. They post on social media. They speak to cameras with tear-stained faces and beg for information. That hasn't happened here in the way people expected, and the internet has noticed. To be clear, silence is not evidence of guilt. Attorneys routinely advise clients to stay off camera during active investigations. That's standard legal strategy. But in the age of viral news cycles and 24/7 social media, silence feels loud, and people are asking questions. Meanwhile, investigators are chasing digital shadows that most people never think about. Cell tower records, device proximity data, movement patterns. These tools can reconstruct a person's location with extraordinary precision, even when that person believes they've left no trail. And here's what makes investigators especially interested. Some believe a rehearsal night may have occurred in the days before Nancy's disappearance, a trial run, a reconnaissance trip to confirm the layout, test the timing, identify any obstacles. If that happened, it left digital footprints, and those footprints may be just as valuable as anything recovered at the scene. Chapter 5. The Science That Could Crack Everything. Here's what gives investigators and Nancy's family genuine reason for hope. Investigative genetic genealogy. This is the technique that has reopened cold cases once considered completely unsolvable. It works by comparing unknown DNA profiles to publicly available genealogy databases, looking for familial connections, building family trees, branch by branch, until the field narrows to a specific individual. Even distant relatives can break a case. A third cousin who submitted their DNA to a genealogy website years ago for ancestry research, with no idea they'd one day help identify a suspect in an abduction, can be the thread that unravels everything. In this case, investigators potentially have two unknown DNA profiles to work with, two chances to find a match, two separate threads that could independently lead to the same answer, or to two different answers that together form a complete picture. The process takes time, weeks, sometimes months, but statistically, with two profiles in the system, the probability of at least one meaningful hit climbs significantly. Patience is hard when a family is suffering, but this science has delivered answers that seemed impossible, and it may deliver them here. Nancy Guthrie was 84 years old. She lived independently. She had built a life, a family, a history, and someone made the calculated decision to take her from the home she felt safe in. As of today, she is still missing. Hundreds of law enforcement personnel are working this case. Tens of thousands of tips have come in. The reward fund has grown. Aerial units are searching the desert. Technology teams are combing through footage and data. Genealogists are building family trees from fragments of biological material. The masked figure on that surveillance footage thought darkness would be enough protection. But DNA doesn't disappear in the dark. Digital records don't erase themselves. Family trees don't lie. The answer to this case is out there, in a database, in a cell tower record, in a tip from someone who saw something and hasn't spoken yet. And when that answer surfaces, it won't just tell us who Nancy Guthrie took. It will tell us why someone she may have trusted let it happen. If you have information, anything, no matter how small, contact the FBI tip line. And if you found this breakdown valuable, share it. Keep Nancy's name visible. Keep the pressure on. Because sometimes visibility is what brings people home.